So today we're going to dive into a book that truly was a game changer, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It introduces this incredible idea that our self-image, the way we see ourselves deep down, acts like an internal guidance system. It actually shapes our successes, our failures, and pretty much all of our behavior. The big idea here is that if you can change the mental pictures you hold of yourself, you can fundamentally change your results in the real world.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. To really get a grip on Maltz's work, we're going to break it down into 4 key pieces. First, we'll talk about the foundational power of your self-image. Then we'll get into what Maltz called our automatic mechanism. After that, we'll look at how you can program that mechanism for success. And finally, we'll cover the practical steps for rewriting your own mental blueprint. Okay, let's kick things off with the absolute foundation of this whole thing, the power of self-image. And what's so wild is that this huge psychological breakthrough didn't come from some therapist's couch. It actually came from the operating room of a plastic surgeon. Yeah, you heard that right. Maltz's work fixing people's outer selves led him to this massive discovery about their inner selves. You see, for years, Maltz was seeing these incredible transformations in his patients. He'd fix a facial scar, and suddenly this shy, withdrawn person would just blossom into someone bold and confident. But there was a puzzle. Some of his patients, even after a picture-perfect operation, were still just as unhappy. They'd look in the mirror and see no change at all. And this is what led him to his big insight. The real problem wasn't their physical face. It was a scarred inner self-image. He discovered that just changing the outer person is never enough. You absolutely have to change the inner blueprint first. So what exactly is this self-image he was talking about? Well, Maltz defined it as our own mental blueprint, the picture of ourselves that we carry around in our minds. And here's the crucial part. He said, this blueprint sets the absolute boundaries for everything we do. It's like a thermostat or a governor on an engine. It defines what we believe we can and cannot accomplish. All of our actions, our feelings, our behaviors, they will always be consistent with this self-image. It's kind of crazy, but we literally act like the person we conceive ourselves. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this just sounds like positive thinking. But Maltz drew a really important line in the sand here. He saw that positive thinking often fails because people try to stick it on top of a negative self-concept, like grafting a healthy branch onto a sick tree. It's like saying, I will get that job when deep down you see yourself as someone who always fails interviews. It just doesn't work. Changing your self-image, on the other hand, is about rebuilding the very foundation. When you change your mental picture of yourself, your actions and results start to change automatically to match that new picture. So, if we need to rebuild that foundation, we first have to understand the machinery we're working with. This brings us to what Maltz called our automatic mechanism. This is the cybernetics part of the title, and it's all about the science of how systems, including us, achieve goals. Maltz was inspired by the science of cybernetics, which, back in the day, studied how machines guide themselves. He was fascinated by this thing called a servo mechanism. Think of a self-guided torpedo that automatically steers itself toward a target. He realized that the human brain and nervous system are basically the most sophisticated servo mechanism ever created. It's a built-in guidance system, a goal-striving machine that, once you give it a clear target, just automatically works to achieve it. So how does this internal torpedo actually work in our lives? Maltz used this great example of a baby learning to grab a rattle. The first few times, the baby's hand just kind of zigzags all over the place, right? It's using feedback, what it sees, to constantly correct its course. But then it grabs it. And that successful action gets remembered by the nervous system for next time. The amazing thing is, the mechanism is designed to remember successes, forget failures, and then repeat those successful actions over and over until they become totally automatic, effortless habits. Okay, so we've got this amazing automatic mechanism inside us that's built to remember success and forget failure. But here's the thing. A self-guiding torpedo needs a target programmed into it before you can launch it. So, if our brain is the mechanism, what provides the target? Well, this brings us to one of the most powerful ideas in the whole book, the role of imagination. The target for our internal success mechanism is provided by our imagination. And this works because of a truly mind-blowing scientific fact that Maltz identified. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a real experience and an experience you vividly imagine. Let that sink in. When you picture yourself doing something, feeling something, achieving something, your brain and your nerves react as if it were actually happening. This is why mental practice isn't just wishful thinking, it's real practice. And if you think that sounds a little out there, get this. There was a famous study on basketball players and free throws. They split students into 3 groups. Group 1 physically practiced shooting free throws every day for 20 days. Group 2 did nothing. And Group 3, they didn't touch a basketball. They just spent 20 minutes a day imagining they were making perfect shots. The results were just staggering. The physical practice group got 24% better. The no practice group obviously showed zero improvement, but the imagination-only group, they improved by 23%, almost identical to the guys who were physically practicing.
I mean, a 23% improvement with zero physical action? That is incredible. So you're probably wondering, how can we actually do this? Maltz laid out a pretty simple method. First, find about 30 minutes a day where you won't be disturbed. Second, just relax your body completely. Third, close your eyes and start to picture yourself acting and feeling and being the way you want to be. And here's the key. You have to make those mental pictures as vivid and detailed as you possibly can. Don't just see it, feel the experience of success like it's happening right now. That feeling, that vivid image, that's the target you're giving to your automatic mechanism.
But here's the flip side. Just as we can program our mechanism for success, a lot of us, without even realizing it, have been programming it for failure. And this brings us to our last, and honestly, maybe the most important section, how we can rewrite our mental blueprint by de-hypnotizing ourselves from all those limiting beliefs we carry around.
Maltz had this fascinating idea that most of us are walking around in a kind of self-hypnosis. We've been hypnotized by these negative, limiting beliefs about ourselves that we just accepted without question, usually from way back in our past. He told a story about a salesman who was absolutely convinced he was a $5,000 a year man, no more, no less. If you gave him a great territory, he'd get sick or just coast once he got close to that $5,000 mark. But if you gave him a terrible territory, he'd work like crazy to hit that exact same number. He was hypnotized by his own belief, and his inner self-image kept his outer results locked in place no matter what.
That story just perfectly shows how the self-image works like a thermostat, always pulling you back to whatever temperature it's set to. But the central message from Maltz is one of incredible hope. He truly believed we are not stuck. As he wrote, we can change our results dramatically just by changing the images we hold about ourselves. We can wake up. We can de-hypnotize ourselves from all those limiting ideas. So how do we actually do it? How do we start breaking that trance? Maltz said we have to use our reason to challenge these false beliefs head-on. He gave us 4 critical questions to ask about any limiting belief we have. First, is there any rational reason for me to have this belief? Second, could it be that I'm actually mistaken here? Third, would I think the same thing about another person in my exact situation? And finally, the big one, why should I keep acting as if this belief is true if there's no good reason for it? Just by consciously wrestling with these questions, we can start to dismantle that old, faulty program.
Now, for those deeper beliefs, the ones that come from old hurts or resentments, Maltz gave us another powerful tool, forgiveness. He called it a form of spiritual surgery to remove emotional scars. But his definition was really specific. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about ceasing to condemn the person for what they did. It's about separating the individual from their mistake. And to heal those old emotional wounds, we have to practice this not just for others, but just as importantly, for ourselves.
When you boil it all down, the core message of Psycho-Cybernetics is this. Our lives are not really governed by chance or external forces. They're governed by an internal blueprint that we, ourselves, have the power to change. By understanding our self-image and the automatic mechanism it controls, we can start to consciously program ourselves for the life we actually want. Which really leaves us with one last powerful question to think about. What if the most powerful story you ever tell is the one you tell yourself about yourself?